Hello, this is Mrs. Clark, and this is my video review on solving equations using the acronym Don't Call Me After Midnight, or DCMAM. So you're going to take your pink paper, or your 2 pages, your cell phone, and your examples. You're going to glue them side by side. I did have to overlap mine just a tiny bit so they fit on my page. And then you're going to want to get yourself 5 different color highlighters in order to annotate as we go through. So what this acronym helps us do is helps us do the correct operations in order when solving an equation. So I've done out the first example for you. We're going to go through and annotate it together as we go through the acronym here. So don't call me after midnight. D stands for distribute. C, combining like terms. M, moving the variable. A, addition or subtraction. M, multiplication or division. So we're going to go through and highlight each of these things and where they show up in this example. So in example 1, all of those things show up one at a time. We're going to show I'm going to show you where to see them as we go through and annotate a couple things, but this one is done completely out just so I can talk about how it happened. And then we're going to do these next two examples using the acronym as well. So first we have distribute. So distribute says to multiply the term outside the parentheses by what's inside the parentheses. In order to have distribution, you have to have parentheses. So if I look in my problem, I have parentheses right here. So the number outside the parentheses is the 4, and then inside the parentheses we have an 8 and a plus 2n. So I'm going to highlight the word distribute in pink here, and then I'm going to highlight the 4 and the 8 plus 2n in the same color. Alright, it's kind of hard to see the pink here. It's easier to see in person than it is in the video here. So distribute and then pink. What we're going to add to this is what I like to usually write when I'm doing the distribution, is that I'm going to be multiplying 4 times 8, which is where the 32 comes from, and then also 4 times the 2n. So it's times everything in the parentheses. 4 times 2 is 8. So, and there's an n on it, so it gives an 8n. So 32 plus 8n, it comes from this distribution part. And I'm going to write the word multiply here just so I remember that that's what we're doing. If you notice, we didn't touch the negative 10 or the positive 5n or the positive 3n over here. So all of those just kind of come down as we rewrite our work. Each time you solve an equation, you're going to do one step and then rewrite your equation, and then one step and then rewrite your equation. So negative 10 plus 5n equals 4 times 8 became 32, and 4 times 2n became positive 8n, so plus 8n, and then plus 3n just came down. We didn't do anything to it. So the next thing we would look for is combining like terms. So I'm going to highlight that in another color. And what I'm going to look for is like terms must be on the same side of the equation. So I have to look for variables to combine with other variables and numbers to combine with other numbers. There's a typo here. I'm going to cross this out. So numbers with numbers and variables with variables. So I'm going to go through each side of my equation and look for things that are like. So as I look here, I have a negative 10, that's a number, and a positive 5n, that's a variable. So those are not like, they're not going to go together. Other side of the equal sign, I have a number, a variable, and a variable. So I have 2 variables over here that can be combined, plus 8n and plus 3n. So I'm going to combine those together. What that means when I say combine is we're going to add or subtract whatever it says. So it says positive 8n plus 3n, so I'm going to do 8 plus 3, which is 11. So notice here we get 11n. That's where that comes from. So we combined, and then I'm just going to, in parentheses, write add or subtract. Next thing we look for is to move the variable. So if you'll notice, I have variable on this side and I have a variable on that side. So when I move the variable, because they're on separate sides of the equal sign, I'm going to look for using inverse operations in order to move the variable. So I'm going to bring all the variables to one side of the equation. I'm going to move the smaller one. You don't have to do this, it's just a tip here. It's helpful to move the smaller one just to give you a way to decide. And it also helps to prevent some negative numbers if you move the smaller one. So So if I look at the two, I have 5n and I have 11n, and 5 is smaller, so I'm going to choose to move that one. So the way I'm going to move the 5n to the other side of the equal sign, anytime I go from one side to the other side, I need to do inverse operations. Since it says plus 5n, that's why you see underneath it minus 5n. That's going to make them go away. I also have to do minus 5n under the other side. That's how I actually bring them over. So when I do that, plus 5n and minus 5n become 0. And if I rewrite my work, I have this negative 10. This becomes 0, so now just on that side, all I have is a negative 10. Equals 32 comes down. 11n minus 5n is 6n. 11 minus 5 is 6, so that's where that comes from. So we've moved all our n's over here, and now all the n's are on this side. So the next thing we're going to look at doing is any addition or subtraction that'll help us get the variable by itself. So I'm going to highlight this in yellow, and I'm looking for addition or subtraction that's going to help get our variable alone. So if I go to the side with the variable on it, there is a number over here, 32. I need to use inverse operations. So I'm going to undo this 32. It's a positive 32, so I'm going to subtract 32. Whatever sign the number is what you're going to do the inverse of that. So if it's a positive 32, I'm going to subtract 32. I'm also going to do it on the other side to keep it balanced. So when I go to rewrite my equation, negative 10 minus 32 is 42. 32 minus 32 is 0, so that crosses out, cancels out. And 6n is just going to come down. So now I have negative 42 equals 6n. Our last step is to look for any multiplication and division. This one's a little hard to see too because it's purple, but in paper it shows up pretty well. We're going to undo any multiplication or division happening using the inverse. So I'm going to look at what I have, and if I look at this variable, there's a 6 in front of it. So 6n means 6 times n. So in order to get rid of multiplication, I need the inverse, which is division. So this 6 that's in front of the n, I'm going to get rid of it by dividing by 6. And I'm going to divide the other side by 6. It's a little hard to see the division sign, so I'm going to darken in this fraction bar here. So this 6n means I'm 6 times n, so I'm dividing by 6, dividing by 6. This fraction bar means to divide. So negative 42 divided by 6 is negative 7. So our answer on that side is negative 7. 6 divided by 6 is 1, so 1n equals negative 7. You can write it that way. You also could rewrite it this way, n equals negative 7. I'm fine with you leaving your answer either way. Some people like to have the variable first. So just so you know, those mean the same thing. So when I'm going through and doing this acronym, distribute, combine, move, addition, multiplication, some problems are going to have all 5 steps, just like we experienced in example 1. But some problems are not going to have all 5 steps, and we're going to need to just skip over the ones that we don't have. So we're going to start with distribute every time and look for it. If it's not there, we're not going to do it. If it is there, we are going to do it. Then we go to the next one. If the next one's not there, we skip it and go to the next one. So you go step by step, starting with distribute every time, and then going to combine like terms. So we're going to do example 2 together. I'll go through a little bit faster this time when we do it. And then I'm going to have you pause and try example 3 and then check back to see your work. So for example 2, if we're looking at this, I'm looking to see if there's any distributive property. So in order to see distributive property, I need parentheses, which I see. So I do have some distributing that I need to do. So I'm going to need to distribute the number that's in front of the parentheses. What's in front of the parentheses? A 3, and there's a minus sign in front of that, so it's actually a negative 3. So whatever sign is in front of the number, that goes with it. So when I go to do my distribution, I'm not going to do anything with this negative 2x. I'm just going to bring that down. But I'm going to multiply negative 3 times 6x. So I'm really just multiplying the numbers, negative 3 times 6, which is negative 18. And then because it has an x, I'm making it minus 18x. So the reason I wrote a minus sign here was because when I multiplied negative 3 times 6, I got negative 18, so that makes this a minus. And then an x because there's an x. Then I've got to multiply negative 3 times 6 without an x, which is just negative 18, so I'm going to put a minus 18 at the end here. and then equals 142. Next, I'm going to look for like terms to combine. So I have variable, variable, number. So I have two variables here that can be combined because they're on the same side of the equal sign. So I'm going to want to combine together this negative 2x and this negative 18x. When I combine them, I'm just adding or subtracting based on whatever the numbers are. So I'm putting these two together. Negative 2 minus 18 is negative 20, so this is a negative 20x. Then I have minus 18 equals 142. Next, I'm going to look for some moving the variable. I actually have all my x's together right here. There's no x's anywhere else, so I don't have to do this step. I'm going to skip it. Next, I have addition or subtraction. I'm looking where the variable is, and there is a number being subtracted from. I'm going to do the inverse, and I'm going to add 18. And I'm going to also add it over here under the 142. So when I do that, I've got a negative 20x that I didn't do anything with. I've got a negative 18 and a positive 18, that makes 0. And then I've got to add 142 and 18, which is 160. So I added 18 because it's the inverse of negative 18 here. So here's my adding and subtracting step. Then I'm going to go to the last step, which is multiplication or division. And again, I've got a number in front of my x being multiplied. What's in front of the x is negative 20, so that's what I'm going to divide by. I'm going to divide by negative 20 here, and I'm going to divide by negative 20 here. And when I do that, negative 20 divided by negative 20 is 1, so I have just x. And on this side, 160 divided by negative 20 is negative 8. So x equals negative 8. So you'll notice in this step, I didn't use the moving the variable step, which is fine. Sometimes I'm going to use all of the steps, sometimes I'm not. So I want you to pause the video, do example 3, and then check back, and I will have it all done out. I'll even go through it and explain it, but it'll be much quicker that time. So go ahead and pause your video, try example 3 on your own, and then check back. Alright, example 3. So there's no distribution in this problem because there's no parentheses. So I'm going to go right to combining like terms. If I look through the equation, 4y minus 7 plus 13, all of those terms are on the left side of the equal sign, and I've got a variable, a number, and a number. So these two can actually be combined together. I can combine negative 7 and plus 13. And when I do that, I get a positive 6. Because I get positive 6, when I go to rewrite this, I'm going to have 4y plus 6. So I get a plus 6 because the answer was positive 6 when I combined those together. Equals 2y plus 16. I didn't do anything on that side, so I just copied it down. Next, I'm looking to move my variable. I've got 4y here and 2y over there, so they're on separate sides of the equal signs. I need to use inverse operations. I'm going to look for the smaller one, which is 2y, and because it's a positive 2y, I'm going to subtract 2y on both sides. When I subtract it over here, it goes away. When I subtract it over here, I've got to actually do the math. 4 minus 2 is 2. So now I have 2y over here plus 6 equals, this cancels out, so it just equals 16. So then I'm going to move to my addition or subtraction step. Let me color code this one before I move on. Now you don't have to color code it every single time, but I'm doing it here in the notes just so that it's helpful. Next, I'm looking for addition and subtraction. There's a plus 6 being added on the same side as the variable. So I'm going to subtract 6 to do the inverse. When I do that, it's going to help me cancel that 6 out and be much closer to solving. So I've got 2y. Those are going to cancel out. Equals 16 minus 6, which is 10. And now in order to get rid of this 2 in front of the y, I need to divide it out because it's being multiplied currently. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. And then I'm going to get y equals 5 because 10 divided by 2 is 5. And there you have it. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure this gets glued in your notebook and you number your page and put it in your table of contents. Thanks for watching.